On Jaipur Dialogues, you had said that we could possibly see some conflict between India and the United States. What kind of conflict were you talking about? Some economic stuff or something Cold Warish? Aniket says, the visa issue, 2 year wait for an appointment in Mumbai and Delhi, 29 days in Chennai. Is that an accident? Deepak says, is America's recent inclination towards Pakistan like the approval of the F-16 package, the US envoy visiting Pakistan occupied Kashmir and referring to as so-called Azad Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir, is it the response to India not taking any stand against Russia despite getting constant pressure from the West, from the US? Yeah, so this all this happening, you want to take an appointment for a visa, let's say you're in Mumbai, it will take you more than 800 days for the appointment date to come. You want to take it in Delhi, similarly more than 800 days. In Chennai, I don't know what it is, 29 days. I'm really surprised it's 29 days. Then everybody will go there. So in India, it's like 800 days, like 2.5, 3 years to get a visa appointment. You go to Pakistan, it's going to take you 3 days to get a visa appointment. You go to Beijing, it's going to take you 3 or 4 days, or maybe 2 days to get a visa appointment. In India, it's going to take you more than 800 days. So it looks like the Americans don't want Indians to get US visas. They're trying to decouple people-to-people relationships, the people-to-people relationship between Indians and Americans. There's a huge Indian presence in the US. More than 300 American citizens are of Indian origin. More than 3 million American citizens have Indian origin, yeah. And there's a very large Indian diaspora there on visas, work visas and all that in the US. So it looks like now they're trying to decouple India and the US, the people-to-people relationship of Indians and Americans. The Americans are trying to do that. So that is something to note, yeah. Then we have the fact that the Americans haven't had an ambassador in India for more than a year, possibly more than 2 years. That's unheard of. They don't have an ambassador in India more than a year, maybe 2 years. The last US ambassador was Mr. Atul Keshav, who is of Indian origin. After he left, there's been no US ambassador. Imagine that, not having your ambassador in one of the world's major powers, one of the world's major nations. It's again designed to send a statement of some kind to India. And now we are witnessing this, all of these hostile actions against India. India doesn't arm any nation that is an explicit enemy of the US. India doesn't do anything that explicitly and clearly is a threat to US national interests in a military way. The Americans are arming Pakistan. They are offering Pakistan roughly $500 million upgrade package for Pakistani F-16 fighter planes, which will be used in a future war against India. So the Americans this is a clear hostile action. Then the US ambassador to Pakistan visits Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and refers to it as so-called Azad Kashmir. It essentially means that the Americans are supporting Pakistan's claim on this region, right? So they taking sides. They have reopened the Cold War playbook. They always have been accusing India of having a Cold War mentality, Cold War mindset. Now, what is this? They are doing that. They are doing precisely what they have been accusing India of doing, right? And India has never taken any such hostile action against the US. So the Americans are now, if you put all these things together, they are now treating India as an adversary nation, right? They don't want any more people-to-people contacts between India and the US. You want to go for a tourist visa, you're not going to get an appointment for, I don't know, more than 800 days. So no more Indians coming to the US. They are issuing travel advisories to their citizens about coming to India, that India could be dangerous to travel to. So, once again, you will not see too many Americans coming to India. October, November, December, up to February, March, or whatever. It's the tourist season, about 6 months of the year. The cold climate when you have in India. That's when most tourists come into India from the US, Western nations, and other parts of the world. So you may not see so many Americans coming to India this time. So we are witnessing this attempt to decouple and break off relations between India and the US. No diplomacy. They have an embassy and a consulate, yeah. They have an embassy and they have consulates, but they don't have an ambassador. So that's very strange, yeah. So no diplomatic relations at that level, at the level which is appropriate for two major nations, and all these hostile actions against India, all of that, right? So what's happening? So what's happening is very clear. India is acting in its own national interest. India is unwilling to allow the Americans to dictate India's foreign policy. India is saying we will do whatever is best for us, for our national interest. If it means that we have to buy oil from Russia at discounted prices, we will do that. We will buy 50 times more oil than we were buying earlier because we're getting it at a good price. If it means that we will reopen a trade arrangement with Iran, we'll do it. In the past, India bowed down to US pressure and stopped buying oil from Iran, which we were getting at a good price, at a discounted price. India and Iran had a very good relationship vis-a-vis oil purchases, right? So India stopped buying oil from Iran, which was very detrimental to India's national interest and to India's energy security. And all kinds of such things have been done, right, by the Americans. India was bowing down to US pressure. India is no longer doing that. And because India has stopped acceding to all these American demands, that's why the Americans are now treating India as an adversarial nation, right? And obviously India acted as a massive pressure valve in releasing the pressure of Western sanctions against Russia. That's what allowed Russia to stand on its own and not become a complete Chinese vassal state. Yeah. So India saved Russia, essentially. India essentially saved Russia, and Mr. Modi essentially saved Mr. Vladimir Putin. Otherwise, Mr. Putin would have become a junior partner to Mr. Xi Jinping, and China would have gone on and continued on its trajectory to becoming the next superpower. So that's what India has done. India has completely rebalanced and reshaped the world order to a significant extent. And now America is officially most likely seeing India as an adversarial state, as an enemy state. And now we are beginning to see all these actions that the Americans are taking, which they've never taken before. Unless we're talking about the Cold War. In the Cold War, yeah, they did that. They financed Pakistani terrorism in India for decades. Yes, the Americans did that. All the terrorism was being financed by the US. And so many Indians died in that. So now we could possibly see something like that happen again. And maybe that's why they are giving those advisories about terrorism and all that. But yeah, this is a different India. If Pakistan, if any terrorism is funneled into India through Pakistan, there's going to be a massive retaliation this time. Yeah, we don't care about the Pakistani nuclear status. Remember that BrahMos missile that found its way into Pakistan? Yeah, these are, some people say it was a mistake, and some army officials were court-martialed and suspended or whatever. It's nice to know that we have to make such statements. Yeah, but you don't send a BrahMos missile into Pakistan by mistake. You simply don't do that. So this is a whole different India. But yes, we are witnessing America now beginning to treat India as an adversarial state. So I said that we could possibly in the future see some kind of conflict between India and the US. What kind of conflict? Conflict exists at multiple levels. You can have economic conflict. You can have the Americans are even beginning to impose sanctions, economic sanctions on individual Indian companies under whatever pretext. So they are now setting the stage for more sanctions in the future. Be prepared for this. Yeah. So now it's begun. They have imposed sanctions on, I think, one or maybe two Indian companies for whatever pretext they cooked up. Yeah. In the future, they could escalate this. So there could be economic conflict. They could impose sanctions of some kind. There could be diplomatic conflict. There could be they could use their their entire assortment of vassal states to pressurize India and to take action against India. They have a whole array of vassal states, whether it is NATO, whether it's the European Union, whether it is Australia, New Zealand, the Five Eyes nations, Canada, all that. They also have Turkey and Pakistan. Pakistan will do whatever the Americans say as long as they're paid for it, and so on. So we are witnessing a polarization of the world order. You could either have a bipolar world order. We're not seeing that. We are seeing a multipolar world order right now. Yeah. India, Iran, and Russia are working together. The Chinese are kind of on the side. They are also to some extent working with Russia to some extent. But India and China have a very hostile relationship right now. And we have the entire US-led world order on the other side. We are witnessing multipolarity. France is somewhere in between. They wish they could break free from US control, but they can't entirely break free from US control. The Israelis, once again, are America's proxy state in the Middle East. So is Saudi Arabia. A whole mess we are witnessing right now, and one hopes it doesn't lead to something really bad. So we are witnessing the beginning of some kind of conflict between India and the US. In 20 years' time, it could be a very polarized conflict. Who knows? As India rises, I think now it's going to be the US that is more concerned about India's rise than China, possibly. Yeah. And if China doesn't rise as rapidly as it wishes to, which it most likely won't, then even China may need India at some level, in some way, as a bulwark against Western aggression and neo imperialism. So we are in the middle of a massive, wide ranging global geopolitical, geostrategic realignment. We are witnessing right now the emergence of a multipolar world order. We have one superpower, which is the US, one failed superpower, which is China, and we have two great powers, India and Russia. We have a couple of medium powers like Iran and France. France is still actually part of NATO and the EU, so it's not entirely a major power. But yeah, that's what we are seeing. In the future, it's quite possible there could be conflict between India and the US at multiple levels: diplomacy, sanctions, economy. Who knows what else? Who knows what else? In 20 years the world is going to be completely different. Maybe not even 20 years, maybe in this decade itself we will see a whole different world order emerging. So yeah, it's still like, what's going to happen we still don't know, and it's not advisable to make significant predictions. But yes, we are witnessing the emergence of this sort of conflict. Yeah, it's most likely going to get more intense as the days, months, years go by.